Well, the art of giving is not that easily learned. Today I'm speaking with a very special guest, Peggy Dulany Rockefeller, the founder of Synergos, which has been working in the space of philanthropy for over 20 years, is in Mumbai for a week-long event, and we've had an opportunity to catch up with her. Thank you so much, Peggy, for speaking with us at Bloomberg Quint.
You're so welcome.
I want to start off by asking you what you think about the way philanthropy in India has shaped up. It has been restricted to a few families and to a few individuals. Do you think that is changing?
Well, first of all, maybe large philanthropy has been restricted to a few families and individuals, but in fact, the middle class and even the poor have been engaging in philanthropy in India for a very long time. So I think what's new is, first of all, more people are emerging not only into the middle class, but into being highly successful. So there are many new people who have a lot of money that are beginning to think about philanthropy and to engage in it. So that has increased the sheer size of the number of rupees going into philanthropy and from the number of sources, as well as the type of philanthropy.
What would you say are the biggest challenges in making sure that that money which is going into charitable causes and towards social good actually makes a real impact? There has been a long tradition of philanthropy in India, but it seems to have made a smaller dent on the biggest issues that we face.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, people have been giving to specific causes for a long time, and the size and scope of India is so enormous that to imagine that philanthropy will be able to, by itself, address those problems is probably unrealistic. But a trend that I see that I feel is very important is philanthropists collaborating with people from other sectors, be it government or civil society, and through that becoming more understanding of the nature of the problems and more strategic and focused in how philanthropic dollars can actually make a difference.
How does someone like you, or people from big promoter-led families, choose the causes? Is it usually something that is close to your heart, or do people with serious money to give to philanthropy first think about what areas needed the most? How do you come to those decisions?
Mm-hmm. I think that varies from family to family. There are probably still many families where the traditional giving has been either to the temple or to the local community, and that may continue. Sometimes the younger generations maybe want to branch out a little bit more, and that's an issue for family dynamics to resolve. How is that shift going to happen, or is it going to happen? But I think in other cases, there are groups like DASRA, which is doing donor education, often for younger generation members, where people are given the opportunity to think, well, what is my passion? What is my real purpose in life? And then to follow that passion through learning about that sector or that issue, and often collaborating both with other donors, but also with, let's say, NGOs or communities who become partners in the process of deciding how it should be addressed and how the greatest impact will be realized.
You've been, collaborating with people doing philanthropic work in India for several years now. Do you see a change in how this work goes forward in terms of NGOs? NGOs have been under the lens recently for the funding they receive. Do you see bigger challenges there right now?
Well, actually, I see progress, even though there are always bumps along the road, in the sense that I think many NGOs are becoming more professionalized, more oriented toward impact, but at the same time more open to dialoguing with the philanthropists or the businesses that are allocating the funding, so that those philanthropists and businesses can understand better from the perspective of the grassroots what the real need is.
Where do you see philanthropy and social cause going hand in hand in a country like India? What do you think are the biggest issues right now which need the most focus?
Well, probably the biggest issue is poverty on the one hand and environmental degradation on the other hand. And those are highly complex, and you can break either one of them down into multiple issues like sanitation or health or education or nutrition, many aspects. So the complicated part is to find, on the one hand, focus, but focus which takes into account the larger context of the larger problem.
What would you advise, what would be your advice to young philanthropists trying to really make a difference? Because when you talk about something like poverty, it is a huge issue. Where do you start? No matter how much money you may have, it may not be enough to tackle such a huge issue. What would be your guide to people wanting to make a difference with the ability to make a difference?
Yeah. So you're so right that no one philanthropist is going to make the difference themselves, and even all the philanthropists aren't. So my advice would be to begin to connect with other people working in the sector which you choose as the one that you want to focus on. Let's say it's education. So find the best NGOs working in the field. Who are the lead educators or even politicians or civil service people who are really trying to make a difference? We talk about bridging leaders, people willing to work across divides. Become a bridging leader yourself. Reach out across the divides to try to better understand and then better collaborate with others so that together you can make a larger impact.
Is it necessary to work with government to actually make an effective difference, or does that become a consideration when you choose your areas, because every government may have their own focus areas?
Well, it's obviously a complicated decision, but I would say if you want to go to scale, you have to involve government. And then, is it the local government, is it the state, is it the national government? So choosing how you involve yourself with government has to be an informed decision. But if you're really aiming for scale, it's the government who's going to be able to go to scale.
Does philanthropy have to be restricted to people who come from families with a lot of wealth traditionally? Can anybody be a philanthropist? And how can people who don't have that much inheritance of family wealth also make a difference?
Absolutely. I mean, the data shows that the poor are more generous than the rich, proportionately. They give more of their money. And the other thing is that philanthropy really actually comes from the Greek word that means love of humanity. So it doesn't really only have to do with dollars. It has to do with giving of your time, of your passion, of your compassion.
Do you think the rich in India give enough?
Well, it's a matter of opinion, and it also depends on which family. I mean, there's some families who really give a huge amount of their profits or even their capital. I think probably more could be done, but that's a cultural shift that I think is happening and probably will continue to happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Peggy Dulany Rockefeller, for speaking with us today.